Good evening, good afternoon, good morning if you're watching this in the morning. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku wrap from the week ending October 16th. This is Sunday night, the 18th. I'm going to start off not with ZB, but I apologize, I had that on it when I started my video. I'm going to start off with crude, CL, on the weekly time frame. Let's zoom in. Hope you had a relaxing weekend. So looking at crude, we see last week we put in a hammer type candle spanning a large amount of the distance between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen. Overall, this chart is bearish in Ichimoku terms as we are under the cloud. We did come up and test. Let's see if the high was not quite all the way up to the Kijun-sen. The high on this candle was 50.13 and the Kijun-sen is at 50.17. So we did sell off just a few ticks shy of the weekly Kijun-sen and then closed a little bit above halfway through the candle, it looks like. So what I'm looking for next week is if we are able to get over the Kijun-sen at 50.17, I expect we could go higher towards this gap, this which is also called a window in Ichimoku terms, and perhaps even towards the cloud, which would fill the gap. And if we go lower, I would expect the potential for a test of this prior area that this candle and the prior candle both reversed from, which is around 45.23. Let's see, this one was 45, like around the 45.20 area. And if we go lower than that, perhaps a test of the Tenkan-sen at 44.34 right here. Otherwise, we're in this range trade until we get a close outside either the lower or the upper boundary of this range. We see if we look over to the left, the red line here, the Kijun-sen representing price action time shifted 26 periods into the past. We see that the Kijun-sen was rejected by this candle here and forced lower. But if we do get another reversal higher, the Kijun-sen will find resistance at right here on the Tenkan-sen, which is around 50.46, which is just slightly above the Kijun-sen over here. So keep that in mind. If then the Chikou is able to break through the Tenkan-sen, it will find resistance at the bottom of this candle, which is around 51.75. So we always have some other levels to look at, which are enabled by this handy red line, the Chikou. Let's go on. Let's move on to ES. ES is currently neutral in Ichimoku terms as it's inside the cloud. It's inside closer to the top of the cloud at the moment. We had a nice move off the Kijun-sen where we found support precisely at 1982. It's actually, let's see, the low is, yeah, 1982.50. So perfect bounce off the Kijun-sen last week, which I suggested was possible if we did trade lower after, in last week's trading. So then we finished near the highs with a really nice move on Friday, bringing us up to the 2026-25 level, which was actually a level that was perfectly telegraphed by the 61.8 on the daily, but I'll show you that in a sec. Let me just finish the weekly analysis. Actually, I will show you that in my daily analysis video, which I will release separately, so be on the lookout for that, and you can check that out there, explaining why we stopped at 2026-25 precisely, in my opinion. So, for the upcoming week, since we are neutral inside the cloud, we could trade anywhere inside this cloud. I think if I move the cursor over to this where the next candle will be, you can see that we have resistance at the top of the cloud at 20.52. I marked that level for convenience. And we have support down here at the bottom of the cloud, and also the Tenkan-sen. The bottom of the cloud is about 1965. The Tenkan-sen is at 1967.38. I can't tell you where the Tenkan-sen might be when we reopen. Probably in a similar area, maybe slightly higher. Could be pointing up. In fact, it's possible because of the momentum of this up move that the Tenkan-sen might even point up and head for a bull cross. A bull cross is when the Tenkan-sen crosses over the Kijun-sen. So until we get a break above the cloud or below the cloud, neutral for now on the ES. Let's look at the Russell. Oops, didn't want to eliminate the Chikou. The Russell, we see the, let's look at the shape of the cloud here on the Russell. You see that we have a flat cloud on the bottom and a flat cloud on the top, and a very sort of box-like shape to the cloud. That is pretty neutral and asking for neutral sideways type action. We did not close last week's candle inside the cloud, but last week's candle closed under the cloud, so we are technically bearish in Ichimoku terms. We are still in an uptrend off this reversal candle down below, as last week's candle did make a higher high and a higher low. So technically in an uptrend, but technically bearish, and we were technically neutral last week because we did close inside the cloud, but last week we closed, or 2 weeks ago, last week we closed just slightly under the cloud. So if we move lower on the Russell, we can look at support at the Tenkan-sen here at 1148.20. And if we do manage to break back into the cloud, you see this area where we reversed at around 1161. That's been a sticky area for anywhere in the early 1160s. It's been a sticky area for the Russell. It's been having a very hard time getting above this level. If we do move higher above that level, we have the Kijun-sen offering resistance at 1181.90. And then if we look at where the cloud will be on the next candle, somewhere around 1213 is the top of the cloud on the Russell. So bearish for now and neutral if we can put in a close back inside the cloud, and then it's a pretty long way up before we would be able to get back in bullish territory for the Russell. If we do sell, we can look at the Chikou over here, potentially finding support at the cloud. So that would be around 1125.40. So that would be an area that we could look for potentially for support. If we do go lower, and then we could also look for the bottom of the cloud to offer support for the Chikou, which would be at around 1120, 1119.50. That level could also offer support. All right, let's look at, pardon my cat knocking things off the counter. Typical, right? Let's look at the NASDAQ. Let me hide these drawings. They are from the daily. Bear with me. I'm going to remove them completely because the hide drawings menu just went onto my external monitor. I couldn't reach it from here. All right. So looking at the NASDAQ, let me zoom out a little bit more so we can still see the Chikou. Pretty complicated Chikou for this chart. So the NASDAQ looks real bullish here. It's obviously bullish because it's over the cloud. Very nice uptrend here for the last 3 weeks after putting in this reversal candle. It's very bullish reversal. We haven't been inside the cloud for quite some time for the NASDAQ. Even when we went through the big sell-off, we spiked under the cloud and then put a close over that. So you can see that we haven't closed inside the cloud. We've remained bullish for this whole time since period. We never put in a close inside the cloud. Very interesting, right? Even with certain components of the NASDAQ doing quite poorly, like the biotechs, for instance. So we are, last week we put in this very bullish candle over the cloud and over the Tenkan-sen and over the Kijun-sen. So if we do, and also we notice over here the Chikou has made it over the candles as well. So there's nothing to keep us from going higher in Ichimoku terms on the NASDAQ. In fact, the cloud is similar and rectangular and sideways looking for the immediate future, but then you can see that it's moving up as we get into the beginning of next year. So if we do trade higher, we have this chop zone here that might offer prior resistance, and that's sort of capped off by about 45.30 area. And if we move lower, we will find support at the top of the cloud here, which is around 43, let's say 43, 42, something like that. Unless we lose the top of the cloud, then we can look for support down at the Kijun-sen at 42.97 and the Tenkan-sen at 42.40.88, or wherever those open when we have the new candle open. All right, let's look at the Dow. The Dow is neutral in Ichimoku terms. It's inside the cloud after putting in a hammer candle bounce off the Kijun-sen last week. So that's pretty productive for the Dow. A strong uptrend with the Dow. The Chikou has room to go higher. Nothing preventing it because it's going to be, as you realize, the new candle is going to be over here. So the Chikou resistance won't come into play until we get about 17,475, something like that. And as far as the actual resistance over here, we can see we have some horizontal resistance at 17,304. So we could look for a pause there, or we could look for the top of the cloud, which will be in the 17,656 area. And if we move lower, we can find support at the bottom of the cloud at around 17,025. And then if we actually lose the cloud, we can look for support at the Kijun-sen at 16810. And then if we really get some strong selling, the Tenkan-sen at 16410 or wherever it opens up on the new candle. All right, let's look at the metals. This is gold. We see that gold is still maintaining its uptrend. We have the Tenkan-sen curling up, heading for a bullish type cross, but we also, let me get rid of these drawings. We have the cloud offering resistance above, and when the new candle opens up, it's going to be right at this flat part in the cloud at right around 1200. I've been harping on that level for a while. You see that we have a bit of a topping tail on last week's candle. That came into play when the Chikou could not get over the Tenkan-sen here and ran into resistance at this candle. So, you know, the Chikou has some issues that it needs to get resolved, and next week the Chikou is going to be running into this big bearish red candle, which could even cause it some further issues. So I wouldn't be surprised to see gold maybe come up and test the 1200 area and then either reverse lower or move sideways for a while. If we don't go higher from here and we simply reverse, we have some support at the Kijun-sen down here at 1152.20 and at the Tenkan-sen at 1144.70, but they will probably be in a different location when the new candle opens, so we'll recheck with those then. But gold is still bearish in Ichimoku terms. We haven't even made it back to neutral yet, so I know a lot of people are excited about this move, but we're not really that far off the lows to get too excited about a new bull market for gold. I know George is laughing at me right now. We have silver here. Silver, I don't know why I put that this price level here right now. I can't remember, but so I see that. Let's see, that high was 16,195. I'll have to remember why that 1622 was significant because it's not obvious here. Probably on the daily. So what we have going on here is bearish still for silver under the cloud. If we do come up and test the bottom of the cloud, similar to the same configuration in gold, that's at 16,325. That would be a good area to short, in my opinion. The Chikou is running into some candle and Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen issues, a lot of resistance right here in the same area, exactly, 1732.5 area. So I'm not thinking that silver is out of the woods as far as resistance until it starts moving into the cloud and getting closes inside the cloud. If that's what's going to happen, until we make it into neutral territory, I'm still looking to short any pops on silver. Of course, you got to have your timing right on that, and you got to know when the silver market is going to move, and it's been difficult to predict. We've had some very big moves at strange times of day. If you trade silver routinely, you know that when Asia, you know, the 8:30 and 9:30, oftentimes when Asian markets open, gold can move significantly, often sell off. We noticed that on Friday afternoon we got a big sell-off in gold Big meaning it sold off from about 1183 till about 1175. So almost like an $8 move we got, right at the close on Friday. So that's interesting to take into account. Silver got a little bit of a sell-off at the end of the day on Friday as well, but not nearly as bad as gold. Well, they haven't necessarily been moving together anyway, and also on this chart we see that the Chikou is oh, I already mentioned that the Chikou is coming into the candles here. All right, let's move along from the metals. Let's look at treasuries. Let's look at ZB. If you are trading treasuries, you should be watching the Bund, because the Bund has really been leading the U.S. Treasury markets, in my opinion, quite a lot. In fact, Germany has been leading U.S. markets quite a bit too. If you're trading the ES, you need to be watching the DAX, because the DAX has been a fantastic indicator for the ES lately. Hasn't historically always been the case, but for the moment it is definitely the case, and you need to keep an eye on that. So ZB did put in a pretty big topping tail last week, so I see price action narrowing and perhaps maybe preparing for a larger move, either to the upside or the downside. It's hard to tell which at the moment. Perhaps we could argue for some kind of triangulation here, something like that. But I'm not really sure that I want to go with that or not, so we'll see. But for now, in Ichimoku terms, ZB is still bullish on the weekly time frame. Over the Tenkan-sen, over the Kijun-sen, we have a bull cross right here. We see the Tenkan-sen is over the Kijun-sen. We do have cloud support right at exactly the same level that this candle opened at, around 157, a little bit over 157, let's call it 157. But, however, so that's for this week the candle will open right here. The next week the candle will also open at this support, but then the cloud goes lower after the next couple weeks, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects price action. If we do move higher, obviously this 158, let's say 158.25 area has been an issue, 159 level has been an issue, and this, 160, let's say 161 has been somewhat problematic to the upside. And moving lower, if we do get a close in the cloud, that would be a move into neutral that we haven't seen in quite some time for ZB, so that would be very interesting. Let's look at the 10-year. All right, here we go. So ZN is bullish above the cloud. We did also get a topping tail on ZN last week, and so chances are, if we move lower, we will test the Tenkan-sen at 128.085, and potentially the top of the cloud around 128.050. Then if we move into the cloud, we'll have support all the way through the cloud, and also at the Kijun-sen below the cloud at 127.075. You see the Chikou over here is tangled up in this area with the candles. Can't get over the candles yet, so that could be causing some issues as far as moving higher. But also the clouds ahead are sideways and then lower, so keep that in mind. Even though we're bullish, it's not particularly bullish as far as the shape of the clouds for the time being on ZN. Let's look at some grains. Let's look at corn. Corn lost the cloud last week, put in a close under the cloud after being in neutral territory for a while, came up, tested almost, not quite, the Kijun-sen. Then after this reversal type doji from the uptrend, we got a reversal. We got an outside candle and then a confirmed reversal lower. So the close underneath the Tenkan-sen and the cloud is not what corn bulls want to see. So I think that chances are pretty good that we continue lower, maybe test this 365 area once again. We do have a cloud twist coming up, but not for a while. But if we do get some buying and able to make it back inside the cloud, then we have resistance once again at the Kijun Sen above, right around the 400 level, or technically the 450 level. Let's look at wheat. Wheat is bearish under the cloud and closed under the Tenkan Sen, so looking pretty good to potentially retest the 486 level and then potentially maybe the 468 below. Let's look at some soybean oil. Soybean oil actually beat the Tenkan Smackdown last week, which is good if you want to be bullish for soybean oil, but we got some decent sized topping tails here, so we might actually reverse trend back down to the downside and potentially even get back below the Tenkan Sen. But for now, the fact that this candle made it over the Tenkan Sen is bullish, so if we do move higher, even though the chart is overall bearish, we could potentially test the Kijun Sen above at 30.49, or this level, which was obviously important previously, which is around 29.35. Let's look at regular soybeans. Soybeans did beat the Tenkan Smackdown also, putting in a close above the Tenkan Sen, although there is a big large topping tail on this candle, so that looks like potential reversal candle for lower. We'll have to see. If we do move higher, we'll run into resistance at the Kijun Sen, 949.13, and if we move lower, support at the Tenkan Sen, currently at 88.50. Overall, this chart is bearish in Ichimoku terms. Let's look at oats. Oats, same situation, made it over the Tenkan Sen, so that, but barely holding on there. Obviously, this area is offers significant resistance for oats. This 230, let's call it 232 area, 231.75 area, having trouble getting above that area, 232 level. What have I forgotten? Let's look at coffee. Oh, I remember, I forgot the dollar. Coffee is had been looking sort of bullish off the bottom and then put in this big topping tail and reversed almost all of the gains of the week before's candle, but didn't quite close at the lows of the candle. In fact, found support just barely at the open of this other candle around 125. So we'll see if this 125 level can continue to offer support. If we move higher, we will have resistance at the 127.68 and 130.90 areas. That's about it. Let me zoom out again and show you that coffee is bearish in Ichimoku terms. So just sort of like a very extended bear flag type pattern underneath the clouds. If we do move higher, on a larger scale, we're going to come into the clouds around 151, but that is quite a lot higher from here. much higher from here. All right, let's look at the dollar. So last week dollar went from, or actually in the last 2 weeks, the 2 weeks ago dollar closed inside the cloud, so it became neutral rather than bullish, and then last week also closed in the cloud, and I'm going to zoom in so we can look. The Tenkan Sen was at 94.813 and we closed at 94.775, so we technically closed under the Tenkan Sen as well inside the cloud. So this is quite a bit of a hammer. However, buyers came in and bought this up, causing a very small body candle and a big bottoming tail. So it's a little bit tricky here, the dollar being neutral inside the cloud, but with a hammer type candle that could ask for a reversal higher. So if we do get a reversal higher, we have the Tenkan Sen first as acting as resistance at 94.81, and then the top of the cloud, which is concurrent with the top of this candle where it sold before, which is around 95.025, and then we have we shall encounter resistance at the Kijun Sen above, which is at 95.607. The fact that the Kijun Sen and the Tenkan Sen are both pointing down like this, reflecting this bearish price action of the last 3 weeks, is not bullish. But overall, we're in neutral territory for the dollar at the time being. The Chikou is stuck between the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen also, I'll point out. The cloud is quite thick and supportive, so we'll have support all the way through the cloud if we do move lower, all the way down to 89, 82 level for the time being, and then as we move forward in time down to the 90, 23 level, we'll have a little bit higher support even. Okay. That's about it. I'm going to work on my daily video. If you enjoyed this video and would like to give me a comment on YouTube or a thumbs up, that would be super. If you want to give me a thumbs down, I would really appreciate it if you would leave a comment explaining why you gave me a thumbs down so I can work to improve my videos. And in the future, if you are interested in joining me in my chat room, you can find out more information about that at CloudChartist.com. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.